Hello, everybody, and welcome to this next segment of Vape Live. I'm Patrick Griffin. I am the editor of Vapouround magazine. And today it is my great pleasure to be joined by not one, but two experts who are really knowledgeable about the industry and great people as well. We've got John Dunne, the Director General of the UK Vaping Industry Association, and Louise Ross, who is the interim chair of the New Nicotine Alliance and a former manager of the Stop Smoking service in Leicester. So welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
Obviously, we have some people here that are veterans of the industry. We have some people who are here for the first time and don't know what's going on. So just briefly explain the UKVIA. It's the #1 trade association for the UK's vaping sector. And it works to support, develop and promote what is the UK's largest growing consumer goods sector. The New Nicotine Alliance works to improve individual, organisational and public understanding of tobacco harm reduction. I hope I've summed those up right in a sentence. If I can start with you, John, I believe congratulations are in order because the UKVIA is 5 years old.
Absolutely. In fact, we're just about to celebrate our 5th anniversary, and what a bumpy and crazy roller coaster of a ride it's been. I think we've seen huge changes in our industry over the last 5 years, and certainly I know I've seen an enormous amount of change in the the 10 plus years I've been involved in the industry. But we look forward to moving forward in a very positive way, and we look forward to the next 5 years.
Yeah, nothing is ever straightforward in this industry, and it seems that we make successes, and then there are some failures, and we move forward and we move backwards. But I think anything that anyone throws at us, we always deal with it, and we always emerge. What are some of your biggest wins over the last 5 years?
I think for us it's around guiding sensible regulation and ensuring that the UK is really promoting a positive outlook on vaping. One of the things that I'm really proud about is when I go and speak at other functions around the world, everybody really looks at the UK as being that positive beacon for hope for the industry. Our government and our regulators are really open to honest discussions with the industry, which we've been involved with since day one. But they're also open to looking at suggestions for improvement, such as the review of the TRPR, which is currently going on. I was able to have a number of discussions with the APPGs on vaping. I was involved in 2 of their evidence sessions. So we were able to highlight some of the recommendations that we've made in our blueprint for better regulation, which we brought out a few months ago. And it really looks at, what's working with the TRPR, but what we could really improve on to make sure that, the UK is doing everything that it can to encourage the 7 million people who are still smoking in the UK to make that positive change.
And I think it's really just positive in itself that the government and ministers are listening. They actually are listening to the industry. And the fact that you've got a voice and you can come up and say, this is what we want to do, that's a really positive step. And it does seem from talking to people around the world that it almost seems like the future of the world's vaping industry is on the UK's shoulders. I know New Zealand is pretty good as well, but it seems that there's a huge tide that we're trying to turn. And the way things have happened with Brexit and everything, I think the UK probably has the best opportunity now to enter the global stage and to have a say on global regulation than it ever has. What do you think about that?
Well, I absolutely agree. And one of the things that we've championed over the last 2 years, and it actually kicked off when I was speaking in Shenzhen with the Chinese Association and a number of other leaders of associations from around the world, where we formed this global alliance for sharing best practices and information. And even though things haven't kind of panned out as we would have liked, obviously with COVID, we've continued to foster that cooperation. So, for instance, we meet about every 2 weeks with the European Association over Zoom to discuss what's been going on in their markets and how we can support that. What trends in regulations are we seeing coming from other parts of the world? And we do the same thing with the US, Canada, New Zealand, and South Africa as well, and our close neighbours in Ireland. So we have a very good network of information sharing. It's all about raising that bar of standards around the world. But that we find very helpful when we're talking to politicians, because we can really share with them the importance of the work that they're doing, not only to foster that awareness and that positivity here in the UK, but how that affects what's going on elsewhere around the world. And we're putting programs in place where we can match up politicians from this country with those in other countries, so they can discuss why the UK is taking that different stance than everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And Louise, what are your views on the UK and its role as in the global vaping industry, and how are you positive about things?
I'm very proud that the UK takes such a pioneering role in this. I think there are a number of organisations that have really made a difference here, and from a public health point of view, which is my background, Public Health England, NCSCT, there are many, that have taken a very open-minded view and looked at the evidence. And I think that's really important. I think it was Professor McNeil said to me, she's not pro-vaping, she's pro the evidence. And I think that's a really key thing to say and to get across to other people. I'm disappointed that we're still not being emulated by countries. I'm not going to name any countries particularly, but I think that there have been many lost opportunities there, where they've introduced flavour bans and various other things. I am concerned that over the last few days there's been a talk about looking at flavour bans and plain packaging in the UK, and we'll be following that very closely.
Yeah, I mean, that would seem to fly in the face of everything that the UK is doing at the moment.
Yes.
I think what we have to say about that, they're just simply unfounded allegations at this point. John, do you have anything briefly to say on that one?
No, I'm with Louise on that. Obviously it goes against all of the recommendations from both all-party parliamentary groups, both the one on smoking and the one on vaping. And it really goes against what Public Health England has been trying to do. And the one thing that's really important to understand in the UK is we don't have a youth vaping issue here. And Action for Smoking on Health, the latest report, really underpins that situation. So, we're doing things the right way. So we shouldn't really be influenced by things that are happening in other countries where the regulatory system isn't the same, the advertising isn't the same. So we really need to be careful that this misinformation on vaping doesn't continue to have a detrimental effect on the UK market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've mentioned before that there have been lots of changes. Going back to your 5 years of the UKVIA, are there things that over that time has not really changed that we really need to tackle, or have a situation where it's just new problems all the time, or are there still like fundamental things that you would really love to have a handle on?
Well, I think one thing I'd like to see is perhaps the the industry itself becoming a little bit more responsible. So one of the things that we've tried to do with our members is really put in place policies and guidelines and things around how we advertise our products. Excuse me, the packaging and the imagery that we use on our packaging, because although we don't have a youth access issue, we don't want it to be perceived that our products are being designed or sold to young people. So we really need to make sure as an industry, whether you're a member of our organization or not, that we are moving ahead in a grown up and positive way. And unfortunately, there's still some areas of the marketplace that could do with some cleaning up, I think. The other area that we're looking at and have really spent a lot of time around as well is testing our members for youth access. So every quarter we test about 120 of our members through a third-party company to make sure that they're not selling products to anybody under the age of 18, and that they are consistently asking for ID. So I think that's something that we feel is really important for the industry.
And that's a subject we touched on at the interview just before this one. Actually, I was talking to Jonathan from Relax International. I know he Relax are a member of the UKVIA, and he was saying how amazingly important it is for the quality and trust to be built up, and to working on not doing anything to attract children and not being seen to attract children, and being responsible in advertising and promotion and sales of the product. So it's really great that I think as an industry now, one of the things we can really say that we're doing well is being more grown up about things and wanting to not only do the right thing, but to be seen to be doing the right thing. And that's to be applauded. And organisations such as the UKVIA are doing a tremendous work on that. Louise, how do you feel about the way, has the industry grown up enough, and are we getting the message across that we should be getting across to people who need to hear it?
I completely agree with what John said. I think that, you know, that sense of responsibility needs to be, you know, not just kind of strengthened, but seen to be strengthened. I really applaud, you know, the idea of age testing, because that's something that comes up and you know, hackles up straight away. You know, if trading standards do their tests and find that, you know, vape shops are failing to check on age, that's, you know, it's such bad publicity, and makes people on, you know, the public health side of things say, well, you know, there you go, that's you know what we always warned about. I think, you know, branding should consider the allegation of marketing to young people. I did say once that you know, flavours could be you know, labelled like broccoli and Brussels sprout and that sort of thing. That would put the little buggers off, wouldn't it? So maybe that wouldn't be such a saleable product. But you know, there are certainly ways of doing it, you know, without you know, risking the criticism that comes with you know, with certain images, certain names, that sort of thing. Because we, you know, we want to swerve that. When I say we, you know, those of us that are on our side of the fence, you know, we don't want to see people kind of stepping on landmines, do we?
No, we certainly don't. And do you think, from your background in public health, that you can understand that when something new comes along, that sort of public health officials might be very, very wary? I certainly get the feeling now that the wariness is kind of fading as people realise the good that can be done.
Yeah. Certainly the you know, for instance, the Association of Directors of Public Health, in the survey last year, I believe 75% of directors of public health were in favour of you know, people using vaping to switch from smoking. That's a huge win. And we want to keep that momentum going. I think the real challenge right now is to make sure that healthcare professionals in all areas of the NHS and wider actually, you know, have a very clear message given to them. You know, that's something that the Royal College of Physicians report stressed, isn't it? That, you know, there should be a very clear communication to all healthcare professionals that vaping is better than smoking. And not to complicate things with misinformation, with guesswork about, you know, what the harms of vaping long term might be. Because, you know, people are just making this sort of stuff up. You know, we still hear of healthcare professionals who are telling their patients that if they're ill, it's probably the vaping that caused it, so they should stop. And of course, what they do is go straight back to smoking,
which we know is particularly bad. That's completely true. If we can get the healthcare professionals to have the messaging, then that's going to help a lot. John, going back to you, I have been asked to ask you, what have been the challenges for you personally as being the face of the UKVIA for these past 5 years?
I think some of the biggest challenges is the fact that when you're trying to lead such a diverse organization, and we have obviously members from tobacco companies to independent retailers to manufacturers, distributors, not only here in the UK, but worldwide. So trying to look at policies and make decisions with such a wide and varied range of opinions is always a challenge. I think it's also a challenge for us, because we have that diverse membership, in influencing some areas of the government. So we have to come up with creative ways of doing that. But I think for me, the biggest thing that I've gotten personally from this is to see the organization grow and to see the standards being raised within the organization. So one of the things that I'm particularly surprised, little and pleased with, is the fact that even throughout lockdown, the organization has grown, has trebled in size in the last 18 months, which, as I said, comes a little bit of a surprise to me. I thought we might see it shrink a little bit, but I think that really shows how much people are dedicated to doing the right thing, where they move their focus and their resources to joining organizations like UKVIA, or in the case of Louise's, for consumers joining NNA, because they really are passionate about this industry and passionate about doing the right thing. So for me, I think that's kind of the biggest challenge and the biggest reward that I get from the role that I do.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely good. And hardly, I mean, I follow you guys on Twitter, and hardly a week goes by that there's not a new tweet saying, I want to welcome a new member to UKVIA, and that's great to see. It really is, and you do brilliant work. Louise, same question to you. What have John's biggest challenges been? No, do you think there is this sense of passion that if only we can get this sort of passion across to people, it will help perhaps not demonize the industry as it is in the eyes of so many?
That's a really difficult question. Sorry, go on. No.
I suppose it is a difficult question. From your organisation's side of things, where do you see that that the industry is at, and how can we communicate better to people?
I don't think it's my place particularly to analyse what's happening in industry. I think from a consumer point of view, though, what I'd like to see is consumers getting more involved. I think there's a sense in the UK that consumers think, well, you know, we've left Europe, we don't have to worry too much about what happens over there, but we absolutely do. And I think, you know, from a collegiate point of view, you know, consumers in the UK relating to what's happening to consumers in Spain and Germany and elsewhere, where you know, absolutely the wrong decisions are being made. You know, if it happens over there, it could also happen here. We should not be complacent about you know, the fact that, you know, we're all right in the UK, because you can't guarantee anything, can you? And anyway, we should still be fighting for you know, proper consumer representation in countries where you know, policymakers and legislators are not taking any notice of what consumers are saying.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because just because we're okay and we're doing well now doesn't mean we'll necessarily be doing well and doing okay in 5 or 10 years' time.
Yeah.
On the consumer point of view, one trend that's sort of come up for me quite often is listening to people in countries like in Europe, where the EU are particularly going down an anti-vaping route at the moment, or potentially going to do that. In Canada, where that's happening, organizations are saying that consumers really need to realize that they actually hold a key in helping politicians and policymakers change their mind. And they can do that by simply telling their own story. Yeah. This is why I vape, and this is what it's done to me. And politicians will listen to that. Mm-hmm. If you're a constituent and you say, hey, this is a really good thing, you need to look at it again. This is my personal story. Do you think that's where the power of consumers lies as well?
Yes, and it's a very simple route. You know, a consumer tells their MP, encourages them to get involved in the APPG on vaping, because, you know, there is still room for other MPs to join that. You know, and maybe, you know, the whole concept of an APPG is a bit lost on some. You know, I think you start to understand it once you've been to a couple of meetings or watched them online. But they're, you know, they're very powerful voices that bring the consumer voice into, you know, the space where decisions are made. So, you know, that there is, you know, the capability of, you know, ordinary consumers to make their voice heard.
And John, do you have any thoughts on that as well? Because often people might think, well, I don't know all the science, I'm not a scientist, I don't study reports, but you use the product that is helping you, and people need to know that.
No, I absolutely agree. And to Louise's first point, I think we can't sit on our laurels and think that everything is okay in the UK. I can guarantee you every single day we're under threat, especially in the last year. We've seen an awful lot of anti-vaping rhetoric coming into the UK, and it's coming in specifically to challenge around the time when regulation is being looked at. As an industry, we can do so much. Unfortunately, our hands are tied to challenge much of this misinformation due to the TRPR rules. So as an industry body, we have a little bit more leeway in what we can say. So we tend to use articles that in magazines and things like that to try and get the message through. But as Louise said, there's nothing better than a consumer who's not industry, because all we will hear is, well, the industry would say that, they make money from it. But having a consumer knocking on their MP's door going, this is ridiculous. I've been vaping for, you know, X amount of years. I smoked for 20 plus years and it's the best thing that I've done. That's the biggest thing that they can do to ensure that not only does vaping continue in the UK to be successful, but that it actually gets better. And some of the rules in the TRPR that really don't make sense need to go away. And I think that's why organizations like the NNA are so important, because they do have that unbiased viewpoint, and a viewpoint that is not that industry position. So I think that's hugely important.
Yeah, so that's brilliant. Where that shows where your UKVIA and the NNA can really work together to get you. Basically, we're trying to get the one message across, but we're taking it from different paths, basically. Just going back to regulation and the UK, we have the COP9 conference, the conference of the parties, and this very secretive body of rabid anti-vapers, as far as I can see, or generally so, and the UK. Can you explain to people who perhaps don't know what that is, why this COP9 that we keep hearing, why it's so important, and why this is the time that if the UK is really going to step up, you might as well do it now?
Absolutely. Louise, do you want to take that one to start off, or shall I?
Well, my understanding is that tobacco harm reduction has been dropped from the agenda from COP9, and it's been deferred until the next COP. I don't know much more than that, but I think it's disappointing, given that the APPG on vaping had, you know, prepared a submission that, you know, it would have been an opportunity to really deal with some of this misinformation right now, whereas in fact, you know, leaving it for you know the next time will just allow misinformation to grow, especially as, you know, the WHO, you know, have made such an extraordinarily strong statement about the fact that, I mean, you know, I think actually quoting that, you know, that vaping is undoubtedly harmful. Yeah, it leaves our hands tied, really, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. And I think one of the challenges here is that, you know, the Conference of the Parties, as we pointed out, is this super secret discussions that, you know, is not open to the public. It's not open to industry. It's not open to experts to participate in. And in fact, most government ministers I speak to have absolutely no idea how the UK's delegation, even though it's very small, how those people are chosen and what their brief is. Now, as Louise pointed out, the tobacco harm reduction portion of the meeting was supposed to be discussed here in COP9, and the Secretariat has made the suggestion that that be pushed to COP10. However, though, we do need to be a little bit careful with that, because at the moment it is just a suggestion, and any of the delegates or any of the countries could object to that. And if that happens, then all of the papers that have been submitted will be discussed. So I think we still need to be a little bit cautious around that right now. On a positive note, you know, our own review of the TRPR is going on at the moment. So I think the pressure now is on public health to make changes that are relevant to the UK, and may not be influenced by what happens at COP or what happened at COP. So I think it could be a positive. It could be a positive for us, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
And you quite rightly point out the review of the TRPR that's going ahead. And again, that's some positive thing that we can take, that the UK can take, without having to talk with any other countries. On that theme, do you think it's important that the UK should take the lead in creating a coalition of countries that are pro-vaping to help and using an evidence-based approach to counteract the misinformation and the anti-vaping sort of lobby that's out there and getting bigger by the day, it seems.
Absolutely, I think they should. And I know one of the things that Mark Palsy with the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Vaping is doing is putting together a Zoom call with interested parties from around the world. So speaking to fellow politicians and health advocates from around the world to really help them understand why his group is making the suggestions that they are for positive change, and why the UK is taking the stance that it has. So I think that would be a huge step forward to have that peer-to-peer discussion, which really I haven't seen happen before. So I'm looking forward to seeing how successful that is.
Louise, do you have any?
Who would you want to see on that international panel? I mean, Iceland springs to mind.
Well, I believe there was somewhere in the region of about 350 people invited to it. So it's obviously Mark's peers around the world.
Yes.
To me, it's those countries that are maybe a little bit more pro-vaping, but I'd also like to see some of those countries that maybe are not so pro-vaping, so that they could get an understanding of why the UK is taking the stance that it does, and why perhaps they're deviating from that anti-vaping narrative that's coming out from the WHO, which unfortunately a lot of governments, as we know, follow. So I think it has huge potential, but I haven't seen another government official taking the reins on that in that way before. And I think that's a great way to kind of show that global Britain needs to be that leader and not just a spectator in this. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the results are from it.
Mm-hmm.
Your gut feeling on that, John? Do you think global Britain is up for this fight? Or has it got other problems that it needs to concentrate on first, do you think?
In my opinion, the government is looking for a Brexit win. And to me, I think vaping is such an easy one for them to get right. We have a huge amount of people in this country that have successfully switched from smoking to vaping. We've done everything right, so we don't have that youth vaping epidemic that other countries are seeing. We've got manufacturers, moving in the right direction from a responsibility standpoint. Now all we need to do is kind of tweak the regulations that we have to combat things like the misinformation that Louise has talked about. It's extremely difficult in the current situation for companies to do that. And I think a lot of the misinformation out there is really making vaping sound like it's as bad as smoking, or in fact worse. I saw a stat come out of America last week where 75% of American physicians think that nicotine causes cancer. These are shocking numbers. But if I was somebody who's looking to switch, and I see these stories in the Mirror and the Daily Mail, that frankly really just don't stand up to scrutiny. If I was looking at that, I'd be extremely confused. So the government really kind of has to step up with some changes to that advertising rules. They need to step up and really have a robust educational process. I think Louise will probably back me up on this. Even though we're very successful here in the UK, only 11% of smoking clinics or smoking cessation clinics actually use vaping products or recommend vaping products, which is extremely low. And I know in Louise's clinic, when she was there, she had tremendous success when she introduced vaping, but I'm sure she can kind of back me up on that one as well.
Yes, I mean, it's not in the gift of the Stop Smoking services to actually say, we're going to become vape friendly. It has to be signed off by the politicians that run the local authority. So, some people may not understand how it works, but each local authority will commission a stop smoking service. So they may have an in-house service, they may commission it through a private provider, but the local authority will set the tone of what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do. And if a local politician, you know, the public health lead among the elected members say, you know, you're not to talk about vaping, they can't. So they might absolutely believe it's the right thing to do, but their hands will be tied. So unfortunately, the stop smoking services have come in for some criticism for not, you know, getting on message about this, despite what, you know, the NCSCT say and Public Health England. But you know, it's the local politicians that are the stumbling block very often.
And does that take us back to the thing that we spoke about earlier, the power of the vapors to get the politicians to understand how it
a local politician will be worried about authorising something that may come back and lose them votes.
Yes.
That, you know, if they have a big backlash because some, you know, previously unknown harm happens, and then, you know, they are pilloried for having permitted something that caused that harm, you know, they won't get elected next time, they fear. But yes, the more positive messages local people can send to their public health lead member, you know, the elected member, the better informed they will be.
Absolutely true. Something that I heard yesterday on one of my talks here on Vape Live was from Canada, the Rights for Vapers organisation, and we're talking about some of the problems that Canada has at the moment with federal flavour bans on the cards. And the woman I was speaking to there from that organisation, she was saying, if only we could do anything like the UK does. It's great if only we could have vaping products in hospitals. If only we could have our health service actively promoting vaping. How do you think the UK is doing for that, like with the NHS trials and things? Around the world, I think people are looking to that and going, this is brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's early days yet. A big trial has been proposed, and it's still in the preparation stage, so it hasn't gone live yet. But there will be vapes given out in accident and emergency departments, you know, particularly to, well, I haven't, you know, seen the full details, but, you know, imagine how great it would be for, you know, somebody who's been a lifelong smoker to come into an A&E department having had a possible heart attack or a stroke or something like that, or with you know, breathing crisis, and they're given something right there and then that could change their lives and prevent the next stroke or heart attack. You know, that would just be amazing, wouldn't it? You know, especially with the white coat effect of it being given by a healthcare professional. So I mean, you know, we definitely need to make sure that people are given extra support after that, so it's not just a one-off and they go and, you know, throw it in the drawer when they get home. That they need to be, you know, fully informed about the benefits of a complete switch. But you know, I think you know, this is part of what we need to develop going forward. The better understanding of vape outlets as ways of stopping smoking. I know that, you know, politically, you know, there's been a lot of backlash, you know, that vaping shouldn't just be about stopping smoking, that it's, you know, it's about the pleasure of recreational nicotine use and so on. But, you know, to get better support from healthcare professionals and so on, you know, that branding could be very beneficial. Would you agree, John, or is that something that members might be uncomfortable about?
No, absolutely agree. And you know, if you look at our blueprint, and I know it's similar to other documents that were submitted to the all-party parliamentary group as well, you know, we call for things like on cigarette branding messaging, so putting inserts inside of cigarette packs, encouraging people to make a switch to something more helpful and healthier for them, to adjust the on-pack messaging for say, devices that that don't contain nicotine, but they have, they have to have a warning on that says this product contains nicotine when it doesn't. That could easily be replaced with a positive switching message to really encourage consumers to say, to make that mindset change, to say, right, so, Public Health England is telling me that vaping is a good thing for me to do. Well, maybe I should ignore the Daily Mail and actually start listening to what Public Health England is telling me, because they're the ones that, are the authority on this. They're the ones that are looking at all of these reports in depth, and they continue to come out and say that, if you want to continue, to switch, that vaping is a very good alternative. And I think that message just needs to keep being reinforced, and not by the industry, but by, by public health and by the government.
Yes.
That's
Absolutely.
yeah. Louise, I want to touch on one thing now. What is occupying your time at the moment? I believe, are you working with an app to help people out?
I am, yes. I'm the business development manager for the Smoke Free app, and having spent years doing or managing a team that did face-to-face support for people who smoke, I think the introduction of a digital way of doing that is just amazing. That people don't have to go to an appointment, they don't have to get help at a certain time, that they've literally got support on their phone, in their pocket. And I think, we've got a huge potential here to increase the number of people via a digital platform to get help to stop smoking. We're also very, very vape friendly. So when I selected the team to do the live advice, I made it explicit that we would need people who understood and got the idea of vaping to switch. Dog's going crazy because there's somebody at the door. They've all had training in that. They can give very informed advice about how to manage the whole vaping thing. So if people have got problems with dry mouth or wrong strength, or they're puffing all the time and they think they're using that more than they ever used a cigarette, my advisors can give them the right advice as well. So there's lots of automated features, as you'd expect with an app, but there's 24/7 live advice too. And we're talking to a couple of vape chains about branding themselves a stop smoking vape outlet, by sharing branding with the Smoke Free app.
And if people watching want to get more information about this, what should they do?
I very much welcome them emailing me. I think my email will go out with somewhere with this webinar, will it? Or shall I just say what it is now? What's the best way of doing it?
I'm not 100% sure. Do you, if you want to give your best out to the masses,
I certainly can. So if anybody is interested in partnering with the Smoke Free app, they can email me at louise.ross@smokefree, or one word, .ai, all lowercase. But I'd love to hear from anybody. So I think it's a very natural partnership, isn't it? A digital way of stopping smoking with a very, very successful product.
That sounds incredibly interesting for me, and I'd like to find out more about that as well. I've discovered one thing during this talk, that I am not as good as John is on time management. The last show, the last event that you moderated, you got everything down to the second. I was so impressed. I don't think I've managed to do that. I've got a whole load of questions that we haven't had time to do. But so I'll have to give you the last word, John. One question that we have: what campaigns can we expect the UKVIA to take part with in the latter months of 2021 and into 2022?
Well, I think one of the things that we're trying to focus on now, as people start getting back into meeting in person, is really trying to engage now with policymakers. Unfortunately, that's been the biggest challenge for us. We've just had our mini forum a couple of weeks ago, which was a great success. And then obviously we'll be running into next year into our Vapor program. But I know the team is meeting next week to actually go through and look at what our next 12-month calendar is going to look like. So you'll start to see a lot more in-person discussions and webinars, and also networking events is something else that we're looking to do. So you're going to see a lot coming out, but I'll have to hold stock until the team actually comes up with a calendar for us.
Okay, well, follow the UKVIA on Twitter and check out their website and you'll get everything. I suppose one last thing, the summer forum that you just had, a question's just come in on that. How did that go? Sadly, I wasn't able to be there. How did it go, and will there be more such forums taking place where people can meet you in person?
It went very well. Usually our forum is a full day event. We usually have about 250 to 300 people at it. So this year we did a kind of a mini version with 3 panels. We had about 60 people join us in person, which, considering the fact that a lot of people were away on holidays, and unfortunately we had quite a big spate of COVID pings, which brought the number down. We had about 60 or 70 people attend in person, and then online I think we had about another 20 or 30. So for us that was a huge start, and obviously it just gave us an opportunity to get back face to face. But now we start back into the in-person events. I know the World Vape Show is doing an event in December in the XL, so we'll be involved with that. I know yourself and myself will be in Dubai here the next month or so. We'll be speaking at that. So the events are starting to get back rolling, and for me, I can't wait to get back and start talking face to face with people.
That will be absolutely brilliant. Both of you, thank you very much. I'm just 3 minutes over time, which I think is good. Not too bad, it's fine. John, thank you very much. Louise, it's been an absolute pleasure. Louise,
Thank you for inviting me.
thank you for being here. I wish you all the success with everything that you're doing for the industry, and thank you again. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bye.